Okay, so picture this. It's the final, brutal year of World War I. The world is literally tearing itself apart. And in the middle of all that chaos, one leader steps up with this incredibly ambitious plan. We're not just talking about ending the war. We're talking about ending all wars. This was Woodrow Wilson's 14 points. So, was it a brilliant blueprint for peace, or was it just a dream that was doomed from the start? Let's get into it.
First off, you gotta understand just how high the stakes were. The Great War had caused a level of destruction the world had never, ever seen before. We're talking about an estimated 15 million casualties, both soldiers and civilians. And look, that's not just a statistic, right? It was a deep, deep scar across the entire globe. A trauma that just demanded a new way of thinking.
So that was the question on everyone's mind. The sheer horror of it all created this desperate hunger for a real solution, for some kind of guarantee that this could never, ever happen again. You know, the old way of doing things, secret alliances, huge military buildups, it had all failed catastrophically. Something had to change.
All right, so it's in this exact moment of crisis that we meet our main character. As the war is still raging, with these insane losses piling up, the American president, Woodrow Wilson, decides that just winning isn't enough. He was convinced that they needed a totally new vision for how the world should work after the war. And so, in a landmark speech to Congress, Wilson lays out his plan. And this wasn't just a list of demands, no. It was a bold declaration of principles that he truly believed could build a lasting global peace. See, he wasn't just trying to end this war, he was trying to shape the entire future.
Now for Wilson, the 14 points were way more than just some peace treaty. He saw it as a revolutionary blueprint for a whole new kind of world order, one built on, cooperation instead of constant conflict.
And this quote, it just nails the core idea. Wilson wasn't just trying to put a bandage on the problem. He wanted to figure out what caused the war in the first place, all the secret treaties, the arms races, the fights over colonies, and create a cure. It was all about prevention.
Okay, so what was actually in this plan? It can sound kind of complex, but the 14 points really boil down to three big, powerful ideas that Wilson thought could fix the mistrust and competition that led to the war.
All right, so first up, transparency and disarmament. His idea was no more secret deals that drag countries into war, and let's get rid of a ton of weapons. Second, freedom of the seas and trade. Let's open up the world's oceans and markets for everybody, because that'll reduce rivalry. And number three, and this is the big one, the right to self-determination. And believe me, this idea was an absolute game changer.
I mean, this idea of self-determination, it was like a political earthquake. Just try to imagine it. You're living under the thumb of some massive empire, like the Austro-Hungarian or Ottoman empires. And then Wilson comes along and says, hey, you, the people, you should have the right to form your own country and govern yourselves. You can see why that was so powerful for millions of people. Okay, but you can't just have these great ideas floating around, right? You need some kind of institution to protect them. And that brings us to what Wilson thought was the absolute capstone, the most important point of all.
His answer was the League of Nations. He pictured it as this, like a world parliament, a permanent place where countries could go to resolve their problems with words, with diplomacy, not with guns. A place to talk things out instead of shooting it out.
So how was this thing supposed to actually work? Well, the key concept was collective security. Basically, all the member nations would promise to defend any other member if they got attacked. An attack on one is an attack on all. I mean, this was a complete 180 from the old system of everyone having their own competing military alliances.
So it's this beautiful, really hopeful vision, right? But a vision is one thing. Reality? That's something else entirely. When Wilson took his big plan to the peace talks in Paris, he basically ran smack into a brick wall of harsh European politics.
See, the leaders of the victorious European powers, guys like Georges Clemenceau of France and David Lloyd George of Britain, well, they had very different plans. Their countries had suffered way more than the US had. They weren't thinking about high-minded ideals. They wanted security. And, let's be honest, a lot of them wanted revenge.
You can really see the clash here. You've got Wilson on one side pushing for this idealistic peace without victory, based on openness and letting people choose their own governments. And then you have the Allies who are demanding security. They want to punish Germany, and they want to hold on to their empires. I mean, these two worldviews were just destined to collide. So, what happened? How did it all shake out? Well, in the end, Wilson's grand vision got watered down. A lot. The final Treaty of Versailles was just a shadow of his plan. And then, in probably the biggest twist of irony you can imagine, his own country's Senate refused to sign on. America never even joined its own creation, the League of Nations. But, and this is a really big but, the story doesn't just end there. The ideas in the 14 points, especially self-determination, they took on a life of their own. They lit a fire under independence movements all over the world for decades.
And that kind of brings us to our final question here. Wilson's plan clearly failed to prevent another world war. But you have to ask yourself, do those ideals he championed, open diplomacy, collective security, the right of people to choose their own destiny, do they still shape our world today? Even though the blueprint failed back in 1919, did it accidentally lay the groundwork for the world we're all living in right now?